Strength and conditioning, part two. Who needs what? Who needs more strength training and who could benefit from more conditioning? In last week's episode, we talked about concurrent training, both the concept in general, as well as the research supporting the potential benefits or detriments to concurrent training. In general, we discussed that recreationally active people and folks who are transitioning from a sedentary lifestyle to an active lifestyle seem to continuously benefit from concurrent training. That is, training both strength and conditioning in the same training block, in the same training session, or even simultaneously with training modalities like CrossFit, lifting a barbell to get your heart rate up, doing strength and conditioning at the same time. We also talked about that it seems like for higher level athletes, professional elite athletes, that concurrent training can be detrimental. It can actually reduce in-season performance for professional athletes, for example. We also reviewed concepts about what does it mean to actually do strength training. With strength training, we're lifting 15 to 30 reps, ideally at 60% of our 1 rep max or higher. And we're doing that for quality of life, improving the health of our bones, our muscle tissue, our tendons, and our ligaments. With conditioning, we're training at zone 2 heart rate or above, knowing that the higher intensity we're willing to tolerate with our cardiovascular conditioning, the less we need to do. As we move through zone 2 to zone 3 to zone 4, we know we drop from 300 to 150 to 75 minutes of cardiovascular conditioning needed for the week. And that in general, pros and cons, regular people seem to benefit from concurrent training, some sort of functional fitness program, and that professionals maybe need to step back, or maybe those folks who are looking to take it to the next level need to step back and evaluate their training program and understand, what do I actually need? Will it be more strength training in my programming, or will it be more conditioning in my programming that's going to lead to a greater performance benefit? So today, talking about helping the individual athlete, what do they actually need? Do we have objective guidelines that can help us make that decision? We do, which is really helpful. Putting that data into practice and understanding where folks may lie on a continuum of what we might call weak, the bottom portions of objective strength percentages, to maybe too strong, at least too strong for the individual sport that person is performing, and that person may need more conditioning. We also have conditioning benchmarks as well. And we'll finish talking about a practical application of real-world athletes in a real-world workout, an example of someone who needs more strength and someone who definitely needs more conditioning. So helping an individual understanding what they need is going to rely a lot not on any sort of individual assessment of how that person moves or having that person test a bunch of stuff, but understanding that that individual in front of you who's coming to you and saying, I want to do a little bit more. I have an extra 30 minutes. I have an extra hour. I have an extra 2 hours. Should I work on strength training or should I work on conditioning? The true answer, but also the lazy answer, is just do more of both, right? We know long-term research will tell us that as individuals get continually stronger, their risk of injury goes down. We have plenty of great research now on body mass normalized strength training, showing things like as women progress and achieve a body weight back squat, and as men progress towards and achieve a double body weight back squat, the incidence of injury in their lower body, hip injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries, significantly reduce. So we could say you could always benefit from more strength training. Likewise, we have really good research on conditioning. That is, your VO2 max continually increases, you tend to live longer, right? Higher VO2 max, higher quantity of life. And so combining those two things, more strength training, more conditioning, is going to increase the quality and quantity of someone's life. And research has really not yet found that there appears to be a ceiling with this. However, there is a ceiling as it relates to that person's time, right? So saying just do more of both as much as you can is not wrong. However, it is a cop-out answer because that person in front of you probably has some sort of constraints on their life. And every person, no matter how much time they have, no matter how professional of an athlete they are, can only train and recover from so much volume. So we do need to understand that we need to be a little bit more specific and understand also the demands of that person's sport. In a sport like CrossFit, getting stronger overall will help move the light to moderate weights we find in metabolic conditioning workouts easier. However, not everyone needs more strength training. Some people are already very, very strong, and they're just not efficient and conditioned with the strength that they have. So understanding baselines is very, very important. What's cool, maybe one of the only cool things about the rise of social media and apps over the past 10 to 20 years is that with logging apps, with training apps, with programming apps, we have aggregated a lot of nice, really objective data. So we're going to talk about Strength Levels, an app where folks log their lifts, which has a pool of over 5 million users, logging almost 35 years of strength training data. And then we have Beyond the Whiteboard, which is a CrossFit-based app where folks log CrossFit workouts. And that tells us a lot of data, about 100 million data points of folks who are logging primarily conditioning workouts, of which include very established endurance baselines like a 400-meter run, a mile run, and a 5K run. So looking at strength, taking the data from Strength Levels, again, 5 million people logging data on a regular basis, they have established 5 quintiles, so 20% segments of poor, good, high, elite type classifications of strength training. So Strength Levels would quantify these quartiles as beginner, novice, intermediate, advanced, and elite, moving from bottom 20% to top 20%. So we have numbers for bench press, back squat, deadlift, strict press, and pull-ups. With bench press, that bottom 20% for males is a 105-pound bench press, for females 40 pounds, and then all the way at the other end of the spectrum, the elite, the top 20%, would be a 375-pound bench press for men and a 225-pound bench press for women. Same thing with squat, a range of 145 for men to 485, women 65 to 300, deadlift for men 175, bottom 20% to 550 pounds, top 20%, women bottom 20%, 85 pounds, top 20%, 345 pounds. Strict press, vertical pressing, men 65 pounds, ranging to 250 pounds. So for a lot of those guys, that's going to be a body weight or heavier strict press, which is quite impressive. And then ladies, 30 pounds on the bottom 20% to 145 pounds on the top. And then pull-ups, strength assessment of vertical pulling capacity. 1 pull-up for men, bottom 20%, 37 on the top end, and then females 1 ranging to 26. And so having those quintiles is really nice because we can take that person in front of us and say, what are your numbers? And we can kind of plug them in to those strength quintiles. Likewise, we have the same thing for conditioning through Beyond the Whiteboard, classifying in 6 categories here, about 14% chunks: beginner, novice, intermediate, high level, sub-elite, national, and then elite. Going from 400-meter run on the slow end, the bottom 14%, a 150, a minute 50-second 400, all the way to a 53-second 400, which would obviously be elite. A mile run on the slow end would be considered 8 minutes, 30 seconds. That's the bottom 14%, all the way to a 4 minute and 5 second mile in the top 14%. And then a 5K run, 28:45 on the slow end, the bottom 14%, to 14 minutes and 15 seconds on the top end, that top 14%. So those ranges are obviously very wide. How do we interpret where someone falls? Is it high or is it low? And again, that's going to ultimately help us come to the conclusion of, does this person need more strength training or does this person need more conditioning? I'm going to pause briefly and introduce myself. My name is Alan. I'm happy to have you here today on the PTI Nice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. We're here on Fitness Athlete Friday. We talk all things CrossFit, functional fitness, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, endurance athletics. If you're working with individuals who are active on a recreational basis, Fitness Athlete Friday is for you. Our coursework coming to you. You have one more chance this year to catch us out on the road for Fitness Athlete Live. That'll be with Mitch Babcock down in St. Petersburg, Florida, December 7th and 8th. That is a great time of the year to be in Florida and not anywhere where I am like Michigan. And then our online coursework will restart with fresh cohorts at the beginning of the year. Fitness Athlete Level 1 online will begin January 20th, and Fitness Athlete Level 2 will begin on January 26th. You must have taken Fitness Athlete Level 1 to take Level 2. You can take the live course at any time you want to. And if you take all three, we consider you an ICE certified specialist in the fitness athlete. So speaking of getting more dialed in your fitness athlete practice, let's put that data to practice. Where does your athlete line up? It's really going to depend on what they want to do, right? If you're working with someone who wants to get better or wants to begin something like Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting, obviously those folks should be working towards the advanced category. They should be working towards getting into that 60%, moving to that 80% or higher quintile. And they should definitely be there if they've already been training for a few years. And then obviously if they want to be competitive, they're pushing their strength to that elite level, that top quintile of the 80 to 100% of performers. Likewise, pure endurance athletes should definitely be in that intermediate category, about the 42% benchmark, or high level, about the 60%, and shooting obviously for moving towards sub-elite, national elite, and elite, the top 40% or so of endurance athlete performance. When we're talking about the functional fitness population, especially CrossFitters, we can't expect to be at the top for both strength and conditioning. CrossFit Games athletes aside, the recreational person who just wants to get a little bit better at something probably be unrealistic given the time they have to train, the time they have to recover, to expect that person to be able to show you, a 600-pound deadlift and a 4-minute mile, a 14-minute 5K, that sort of thing. So for those folks, we definitely want to see them in the advanced category of strength, that 60 to 80% maybe. And we definitely want to see them sit firmly in that intermediate category for endurance. Again, somewhere right in the middle or maybe a little bit higher. Understanding where that athlete sits with their lifts and their different endurance tests will let you better help them understand what they need to work on. And maybe even specifically within just the broader categories of strength and conditioning, maybe just a specific lift or maybe just a specific modality to train on. Maybe they're a really good rower and they are in an advanced or elite category for rowing, but maybe they run a 10-minute mile, right? So they have an efficient conditioned cardiovascular system, but they're not efficient in the movement pattern of running, and they want to or they need to be. So understanding where they lie in the different modalities is also important. Practically, what does this look like in real life when you meet some of these people? How is a strength athlete limited by their conditioning? And how is a conditioned athlete limited by their strength training? Strength athletes in general typically have no problem lifting heavy, lifting towards their 1 rep max of a lift when they're fresh, right? Assuming they didn't just lift to 90% yesterday, coming in on a Monday morning, had the weekend to recover, that person should be able to easily build towards 90% or higher on their lifts. Strength athletes who need to prioritize conditioning when they are doing something like CrossFit typically require longer rest breaks when moving a high volume of light to moderate barbell work, dumbbell work, whatever. In particular, these folks really tend to fall off as the length of the workout increases. The longer the workout, the worse the performance, especially if we transition away from any movement in the workout that's going to play to literally their strengths, right? If we get away from the barbell, if we get away from the odd object, the dumbbell, the kettlebell, we move towards things like running or double unders or maybe gymnastics, that person tends to fall apart. They can get more efficient in those patterns, right? But in general, they need to work on their conditioning. On the other side of the spectrum, a conditioned athlete is limited by their strength training when you see that they have no problem moving very fast with body weight or monostructural movements, right? The opposite of the person we just talked about. This person loves a workout of double unders and sit-ups or running and box jumps, right? Lightly loaded or body weight stuff. They can go all day and they can move at a pretty good pace. But if you add a moderate or heavy weight into that workout, let's say a pair of double dumbbell thrusters at 50-35, a 185, 135 barbell, a 225, 155 barbell, all of a sudden that person screeches to a halt, right? They cannot do as many reps. They may have to do singles. They may not be able to lift the prescribed weight at all, right? Which are all indicators that that athlete has good conditioning, but probably could benefit from some additional strength training. So when they're doing singles, when they need to rest a minute between those singles, that sort of thing. Meanwhile, the strength athlete comes in the door, maybe behind them on the run, but walks up to that barbell and starts doing touch and go reps, where that conditioned athlete that needs more strength training is just staring at the barbell. A really good example, I was at a high-level competition back at the end of September, and I watched this play out in real time. So it was a really fun workout to watch. It had two parts. Part A was a 5-minute window to run 600 meters and then find a 1-rep max clean and jerk. Athletes had 2 minutes of mandatory rest. And then part B was also a 5-minute window, but it was the workout in reverse, kinda. So athletes had to start the workout with 10 clean and jerks at a prescribed weight of 185 pounds for guys and 125 pounds for women. And then they had to finish with a 600-meter run. So part A, the score was how much weight can you lift? Part B was how fast can you do the workout? And I watched a very strong athlete crash and burn on this workout, and I watched a very conditioned athlete crash and burn in this workout for two different reasons. The strong athlete really sandbagged the run on the first part of the workout, the 600-meter run, right? Came in the door around 3.5 minutes. 600 meters is a little bit less than a half mile. So probably came in the door running somewhere around an 8.5 minute mile pace. Came in the door and had no problem lifting the heaviest bar on the floor, right? This gal lifted 225 for a clean and jerk, no problem. She understood if she did the run too fast, she's not conditioned enough to be able to come in and lift that heavy bar. So she significantly paced the run, knowing if she could mitigate the fatigue from it, she would have no problem demonstrating her strength with that heavy barbell. Now, who are the people who did not do well? Those folks who did not pace it correctly and who came in the door and just could not lift as heavy as they wanted. Now, the opposite played out in reverse in part B, right? A fast athlete who needs more strength training may have won the run on part A, but not lifted anywhere close to the highest amount on the floor. Now, in part B, where we're doing 10 and clean and jerks, the athlete who needs more strength training, again, may have to hit that barbell of 10 reps as singles because it is so much closer to their max because their strength training is lacking so much. And so that person is really going to struggle to get through those 10 reps and then get out the door to get on the run. You'll also see that someone who is very strong but very deconditioned is going to struggle on a workout like that for the opposite reason. They're going to have no trouble moving those 10 reps, but 10 reps for that person is cardio, right? It's really going to fatigue them. They're going to go then into that run very fatigued. And in this part of the workout, the score is your time to finish the run, right? Not how fast you lifted the 10 reps of the clean and jerk. So that person may not finish this workout. So they may have won part A, they may have lifted the heaviest barbell, but they may have placed last in part B due to a lack of conditioning. So two different examples of two different athletes, someone who needs more strength training, somebody who needs more conditioning, who is maybe going to win part of a workout, but not the whole thing. Who actually won the workout? The athlete who was third on the first part, right? Came in the door relatively fast, lifted a moderate to heavyweight barbell, the third heaviest bar on the floor, and was so conditioned that the 2-minute rest was enough time to recover, to do the 10 clean and jerks very fast, and hit that run very fast, right? Hit that run in like 2.5 minutes, come in the door 4-ish minutes or so, right? And so that's an example of someone who is balancing, especially in a sport like CrossFit, strength and conditioning together to create the most optimal performance. That lady did not win part A because she's not the strongest athlete. She also did not win part B because she's not the most conditioned athlete, but she's exactly where we want to see a competitive CrossFit athlete, consistently near the top in all events, regardless of a strength-focused event, a conditioning-focused event, a skill-focused event, right? And so understanding where your athlete lies with their strength training, with their conditioning benchmarks is going to let you know Does this person need more strength training? And does this person need more conditioning? And maybe more importantly, what specifically do they need to work on? Hey, your bench press strength, top 20%. Your back squat strength, 40%, right? We need to work on more back squats. Or, hey, you're rowing, your biking is exceptional. You're running, your max mile run is 11 minutes. You're not even on this chart, right? You're near 1%, the bottom 1%. We really need to work on running conditioning for you. So better understanding these objective benchmarks, where that person lies, is going to really help you understand what to give that person to do to increase their performance when they come to see you and say, I have some extra time. I want to get better at CrossFit. I want to get better at weightlifting. I want to get better at running, or whatever they come to ask you for. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you did not listen to last week's episode, that's a big primer for the underlying basics of this episode. And then layering this one on top will really help make sense. That's what we've got for you today. Thanks for joining us. I hope you have a fantastic Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everybody.